Hello, I'm Mike, and this is Will. We're the Tabletop Donkeys.
Hello.
And we're looking at issue 28 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine today. This issue came with Zarbag's Gitz, a new warband for the Gloomspite Gitz, or the Forces of Destruction, and you can see them in today's game. Looking through the issue first, we have a little bit of background on the Gloomspite Gitz themselves, particularly their affinity for mushrooms and fungi of all types. So the various shamans will use mushrooms in their rituals. Some of the fanatics will drink these strange brews to psych themselves up, or they might swing great puff balls, as they're called, to release spore clouds. But the most vicious and numerous of the fungi that accompany, or that are used by the Gloomspite Gitz, are in fact the squigs, which aren't actually aren't animals, they're actually fungi themselves. And over the page you can see some of the many varieties of squig. So some are flying, some have multiple legs, but they are all round toothy omnivores that are driven entirely by hunger, that breed quickly, and some even get to extreme sizes. There's a horrible variety of them. Then the battle record for Zarbag's Gitz. So these are a group of wily adventurers. Unusually, they even show a great deal of valour for Grots in defending Zarbag, the shaman who leads them. You have a little table there to roll on for the reasons for joining your Forces of Destruction in this collection. And then on the next page, you have the chosen tactics they're going to be using, and then a little list of great deeds. And it also gives you the picture and their name of each one, because they're obviously named characters, and some of them do look a bit similar. Then their build guide. They are an old Underworlds warband, so they're all pushed together models, and they go together fairly well. There aren't too many parts for them. In fact, even some of the bowmen are only one part and the base, so 2 parts each. And it does, again, go over all their names. And not too difficult to put together. A few things to note. Probably need to be a little bit careful with the chain for the fanatics. A great ball and chain he carries around. And then their painting guide. So they're starting off with auric flesh, a little bit strangely. Probably make more sense to go with out on black for their cloaks first and then do auric flesh, but do whatever you find easier. And then the belcher for all the various metal parts. And a few other things like Corax White for the Snuffle Spite, I believe it's called, or the Sniffer Spite in Zarbag's little cage. Corax White for some of the fungi around. Mephiston Red as well for the caps of the mushrooms. Catadran Flesh for any wood. And the 2 squigs used to going over with Corn Red rather than black or green. And Wraithbone for their teeth. And there you can see them up to this point. So now I'll hand you over to Will, and we're going over some more of the core rules, and then we'll see Zarbag Gitz in our game.
So we're continuing our look through the core rules. This time we're looking at wounds. So first up, allocating wounds. This is as we've been playing it, but just a reminder that if a model has taken wounds in a unit, then you have to allocate more wounds to that model before you do to any others, until that model is slain. What it means for a slain model. There's also a bit about returning slain models to the unit, and it clarifies that when returning models, for example with the rally ability, they have to be set up within 1 inch of a model that was already on the board when you did the ability. And about wards, which we've seen again, but a clarification here that you can always use a ward roll to try and ignore a wound, or a mortal wound. What it means for wounds to be healed, that's all fairly straightforward, and then mortal wounds, which we've known about for some time. And over the page we move on to the Battle Shock phase, which again is much as we've been playing it before, but just more formalisation here. Specifies what it means for a Battle Shock test to be failed and for a model to flee. And there's also a bit about split units, which I don't think we've known about before. So after all the Battle Shock tests have been taken, for every unit that is not a single coherent group of models, according to the coherency rules, models must be removed from that unit until it is coherent again. So that's particularly relevant for large units, where obviously every model has to be within 1 inch of 2 other members of the unit. Worth paying attention to which models you're removing for casualties, making sure everything stays in coherency, otherwise you might end up losing more. And we also have another command ability. This one's used in the Battle Shock phase, called Inspiring Presence. And you use it at the start of the Battle Shock phase, and the unit receiving the command does not have to take Battle Shock tests in that phase. And then finally, the last point is about the end of the battle round, and occasionally things happen there, like scoring points. And then a tutorial for Inspiring Presence. So even though these gut rippers have lost a lot of models and would be taking a Battle Shock test with a fairly hefty penalty, using Inspiring Presence means they don't have to take a Battle Shock test at all. And on the other side of that page is actually just some photographs of some models. And now we're on to our new war scrolls. So first we have Zarbag of Zarbag's Gitz. He has 5 wounds, a 6+ save, a 5-inch move and bravery 5. He's armed with his cursed sickle, which has a 2-inch range, 3 attacks, a hit on 3s, wound on 3s, with rend -1 and 2 damage. But he is a wizard, and he can cast 1 spell normally in the hero phase and unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase. But his Sniffer Spite rule means that at the start of the hero phase you can roll a dice, and on the 4+ he can cast an additional spell, which might be handy because he has 2 spells of his own. First is Jealous Hex, which has a casting value of 6 and a range of 18 inches. You'll pick an enemy hero within range and visible, and until the start of the next hero phase, that hero must ignore positive modifiers to hit rolls and wound rolls, and positive modifiers to save rolls for that hero are not applied when it is attacked. And the second spell is Face of the Bad Moon, which has a casting value of 5. If it's successfully cast, you pick an enemy unit within 3 inches of Zarbag, and that unit must make a retreat move immediately. Or if it's impossible for it to do that, because it can't get out of range of enemy units, for example, it takes d6 mortal wounds instead. And then Zarbag's Gitz, the rest of them are a separate unit. They have a 5-inch move, 6+ save and bravery 5 as well. They have 2 wounds each, and there are various models in the unit which we saw back in the battle record, but they're all armed slightly differently. First up we've got Drizgit the Squig Herder, who isn't actually the unit champion. It doesn't technically say they have one at all here, so I guess they can't issue commands to themselves. He has a Squig brand, which is 2-inch range, 2 attacks to hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend -1, 2 damage. Then Progdanetta has the Barb Net, which is a 2-inch range, 3 attacks to hit on 3s, wound on 4s, no rend, 1 damage. Dibs, Red Cap and Stickit are the bowmen, who all have Moonclan bows, which have a 20-inch range with 1 attack per hit on a 4, wounds on a 4, no rend and 1 damage. They're also armed with Slitters, which are 2 attacks in melee, 4s and 4s, no rend, 1 damage. And finally the 2 Squigs, Gobberluck and Bonecracker, have their fang-filled gobs, which have a 1-inch range with 3 attacks that hit on 4s, wound on 3s, rend -1 and 1 damage. Not only that, we have a lot of special rules for them. So firstly, the netters. So while Progdanetta is alive, you just subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units while they're within 1 inch of any units with a netter in them. So while he's alive and an enemy unit is within 1 inch of the unit, they're -1 to hit. Snurk Sourtongue, who obviously hasn't been mentioned yet, is in fact a separate unit. It's a unit of 1 Loon Smasher Fanatic model, and we'll have the war scroll for him over the page. The way he works is the first time this unit is set up on the battlefield, a 1 model Loon Smasher Fanatics unit is added to your army and hidden within this unit as a reserve unit, which will make more sense in a minute. And finally, Protector Boss is their bodyguard ability, so while Zarbag is within 3 inches, wounds allocated to him, you can roll a dice. On a 1 or 2, that wound is still allocated to Zarbag, but on a 3+ it's allocated to the Gitz unit instead. And a tutorial for them. So firstly, the Face of the Bad Moon spell, forcing these Vindictors to retreat, since they're within 3 inches of Zarbag. And then actually a little tactics section on what to do with the different models in Zarbag's Gitz. So the 3 bowmen are essentially your cannon fodder. They should die first. Drizgit and the Squigs do all the damage, but Progdanetta is extremely useful to keep alive as well. And finally the Fanatic, who we will see now. So here's the war scroll for the Loon Smasher Fanatics. And actually down the bottom of the page it does say that we'll receive 2 units of Loon Smasher Fanatics with the magazine. The first is Snurk Sourtongue, who is a unit of 1 model, but we'll also receive a second unit of 5 models with a later issue, and this war scroll is for both units. So they have an interesting profile. They have a 2d6-inch move, which you roll every time the unit makes a move. They have 1 wound each, 6+ save, but bravery 10, because they're completely insane. They're equipped with a ball and chain, which has a 3-inch range, d6 attacks, 4s to hit, 3s to wound, but rend -2 and d3 damage each. And their deployment rules are quite extensive. So during deployment, instead of setting it up on the battlefield, although bear in mind that Snurk Sourtongue is always set up in the Gitz, he doesn't have the option to be set up normally, you can place the unit to one side and say it's hidden in another unit. You can set up 1 Loon Smasher Fanatics unit in this manner for every Moonclan Grot unit in the army of 5 or more models that doesn't have the Squig or Fanatic keyword. At the end of the deployment, you secretly pick 1 friendly unit on the battlefield for the Fanatic unit to be hidden in, and then mark it down as it says here on a piece of paper or anywhere else convenient. It must be hidden in a unit of Moonclan Grots consisting of 5 or more models that again does not have the Squig or Fanatic keyword and doesn't already have another unit hidden within it. And then their rules for releasing the Fanatics are that at the start of the charge phase you can release the unit, and if you do so, you set it up wholly within 3 inches of the unit in which it's hidden, and more than 3 inches from all enemy units, and if it was released in your charge phase, then it can attempt to charge as normal. Otherwise, in your enemy's turn, it just sits there, or if the unit in which the Fanatics are hidden is destroyed, then before removing the last model, you set the Fanatics unit up wholly within 6 inches of that model before removing it. And finally, Whirling Death means that they have the Strike First effect, which we learned about in a previous issue. And there's a tutorial for that on the next page, because there's quite a lot to take in there, so read these carefully if you're not sure what any of that means, but there's just some examples and demonstrations of how that works. And then we're finally on to our game. So the background for this is that Zarbag has been going in search of Dabad Moon, the strange celestial phenomenon that is worshipped by the Moon Clan Grots, and he thinks he's found it, and this will have an effect on the forces fighting on the battlefield under its light. So for the Forces of Order, we've got the Lord Imperator, 6 Gryph-hounds, 5 Vindictors and 4 Praetors. And for the Alliance of Destruction, we have Zarbag, the Loon Boss, Zarbag's Gitz, the Killer Boss with Stabgrot, 10 Gut Rippers, 10 Hogbrut Slitters, and the Marsh Call of Slogoth. And then here's our battlefield. We've got our 2 orange battle mats. The territories are a quarter of the way across from the long edges, and a preset terrain layout, which we will obviously see on the board in a second. Flying as normal, and then the game lasts for 5 battle rounds. The victory condition is whoever has the most models within 3 inches of the Azerite fountain, which is in the centre of the battlefield. Or if neither player has models within 3 inches of the fountain, it's a draw. Or presumably if they have the same number of models, it doesn't actually specify what happens if that happens, but yeah. And the special rule is Behold the Bad Moon. So the baleful light of the Bad Moon is cast across the battlefield, which means that in the battle shock phase, every non-hero unit within 12 inches of the centre must take a battle shock test, even if they didn't suffer any casualties, and you add 2 to the battle shock roll in addition to the normal modifier for casualties. But Moon Clan and Troggoth units, the Slogoth has the Troggoth keyword, are exempt from that. So, plenty of new stuff to take in this issue. We'll set up the game and hopefully see plenty of that in effect. So here's the battlefield. Obviously we've set up the primal layer and the fountain as instructed. Having a look at my deployment, we've got the Vindictors, the Lord Imperator behind, the Praetors in the middle, and the Gryph-hounds on the right. The Vindictors with their banner and the Praetors are both Bravery 8, so they won't be, unless they take casualties, they won't be worried about the automatic battle shock tests every turn. But the Gryph-hounds being Bravery 6 do need to stay away from the middle, otherwise they'll just start running away. And on the other side, here's the Destruction deployment.
Yeah, so we've got the little Cruel Boys detachment with the Killer Boss, the Hogrots, and the Gut Rippers on my left. Again, the Hogrots and the Gut Rippers are really low bravery, so they need to stay away from the middle for now. Slogoth in the middle for its aura, and then Zarbag's Gitz with Zarbag behind, and the Loon Boss on my right. And I guess I'll make the Killer Boss the general. He seems to be the biggest orc here, so he's probably the one in charge.
Yeah, that's still comparison. And of course, Snurk Sour Tongue is, as instructed, set up hidden in the unit of Zarbag's Gitz. So now we're just rolling off for the first priority of the game. Well, I rolled a 6, I finished deploying first, so I automatically win, but I will therefore make the Destruction forces go first, I think. Yeah. On to Destruction turn 1. So in the hero phase we both attempted to do heroic leadership and failed. You can see I start with 3 command points after the start of the turn, and Destruction had 2.
And Zarbag's not going to be in range for any of his offensive spells, so I won't bother trying to see if he gets to cast now. He's just going to try and cast Mystic Shield, which he does with a 5.
Yeah, and I don't have any wizards, so I cannot unbind in this game.
Mystic Shield's going to go on the Slogoth, and then the heroes, the Slogoth and the Grots, are going to move up. Hogrot's going to stay where they are for now as a reserve. And the Gut Rippers move forward a little bit. There's no need to move them too far. I could just use Insane Bravery to make them pass that battle test, but there's no point needing to do that just yet. In the shooting phase, we've got 3 bows in Zarbag's Gitz, so we'll put 3 shots into the Vindictors, I suppose.
Yeah, I might as well actually just do all-out defence, because I've got so many command points, I'm not going to use them.
So 3 shots on 4s. 1 hit. We're wounded.
We've got a 2+ save. Oh, well, it's a good thing I used that command point. But that's it. We do get to the battle shock phase, where I do have to take battle shock tests for my 2 units that are within range, but they automatically pass because they're Bravery 8. So we're on to Stormcast turn 1. We both tried heroic leadership again. The Lord Imperator failed, but the Killer Boss succeeded this time. And then I've just moved forward tentatively with the Vindictors up front, because that Fanatic is a little bit scary. The Gryph-hounds have even moved across so that, well, if the Fanatic is released within 12 inches of them, then the Lord Imperator could shoot at them for free because of their warning cry. But speaking of shooting, the Lord Imperator can shoot with his baton, and he'll do so at Zarbag's Gitz. I might as well issue all that attack, because I don't have anything else to use command points on.
And I'll use all-out defence so they get a save.
So D6 shots. 3. Yeah, hitting on 2s. Still going to miss. And wounding on 4s. Oh yes, we did, as we said, we didn't actually say, but the
Noisy Racket is my dirty trick because there's no cover.
Yeah, and it does apply to the Moon Clan units as well. We've established before. So that did save a wound.
6+ save. No.
So a wound on a Git. Yeah, but I'm not going to do anything further, so that'll be the end of my turn. So rolling off for battle round 2. 4.
I've got a 6. I will choose to go first.
On to Destruction turn 2. So I tried heroic leadership again and failed, but it is the Loon Boss's finest hour.
Yeah, and then let's see if Zarbag can cast an extra spell. We can, although I don't know if Jealous Hex will actually be in range. Well, we'll start with Mystic Shield. That's successful.
Zarbag wasn't actually in range to cast any more spells, so we moved on to the movement phase.
Mystic Shield went on Zarbag's Gitz, by the way. Loon Boss has moved up.
But I'm going to redeploy the Vindictor, basically just to try and waste his finest hour. And I might as well use the free command point from the Lord Imperator to do that. Get it once per turn. D6 inches, 2. Well, that makes the charge 2 inch harder. So the Vindictor's just moved a couple of inches backwards, and then we have the rest of the movement.
Yeah, the Slogoth and Zarbag's Gitz, with Zarbag behind, have gone around the fountain. And the Killer Boss and the Gut Rippers have moved up. Gut Rippers have getting around the flanks. So we'll have to take a Battleship test for them, but I might be have enough to do Inspiring Presence. And the Hulk round, they're actually staying just 12 inches away over on my left flank. And then we've got 3 shots from Zarbag's Gitz. They're going to shoot at the Griffhounds. 3 shots on 4s. Getting 2. And 4s. Nope. And at the start of the charge phase, we're going to release Snurk Sourtongue just within 3 inches of Goblock there. He's going to try and charge.
Yeah, and he's not within 12 inches of the Griffhounds, so they don't get to do a warning cry, because he has been set up on the battlefield.
So, Snurk's charge is a 10. It's definitely going to be enough. And the Loon Boss will charge as well. An 8. That's probably just enough as well.
So Snurk Sourtongue gets to there, but I'm actually going to spend a command point to unleash hell with the Lord Imperatant, because Snurk Sourtongue only has 1 wound, so if I can kill him with shooting, that will be quite good. D6 shots, 1. Okay, well, it's on a 4 because we're unleashing hell. No, it missed. Would have missed anyway. And then the Loon Boss gets to there, just about enough with an 8.
Yeah, now that Snurk's out of the way. That's all my charges. I don't need to charge the Slogoth, but Snurk Sourtongue has strikes first, so he goes first, and actually the Loon Boss will issue all-out attack to him as well.
Okay, and I will issue all-out defense from the Vindictor Prime to the select.
So Snurk has D6 attacks, 4, hitting on 3s now because of all-out attack. Only 2, and then 3s again. Nothing.
No. But then the Loon Boss gets to go because we've done the strikes first people, and then it's the destruction turns, and so he can be picked to fight.
So hopefully he can make up for Snurk's disappointment. He has 5 attacks on 2s because he's near the Slogoth. They all hit. And wounding on 2s because it's his finest hour. That's 5 wounds at -1.
We do have all that defense, so we're back to 3s, and we failed 1 of them.
D3 damage, 3.
Ooh, kills 1.5. And then the remaining Vindictors will pile in, and I'm going to put 3 of their 9 remaining attacks on the Fanatic to try and get rid of it. Also, the Loon Boss's finest hour, so probably not going to do much damage to him. There's 3 attacks on Snurk Sourtongue, which hit on 3s. 2. Oh, he did a mortal wound, of course, with Stormsoul Arsenal, so the Fanatic is dead. And the remaining 6 attacks on the Loon Boss, on 3s. Takes a mortal wound, we've got 1 miss. And wounding on 3s. No, only 1 more with a 1 rend.
So 4+ save, no. And then 2 6+ wards, no, down to 3.
And the Praetors were also brought in, but they can't get through to fight, so I've just piled them in 3 inches, just get them a little bit further forward. And then the Vindictors lost a model, so they will have to take a battle shock test, or so they can fail their battle shock test, but I will spend my last command point for Inspiring Presence at the start of the battle shock phase, so they don't have to take a battle shock test.
And I'll do the same for the Gut Rippers as well.
On to Stormcast turn 2, the Lord Imperatant was successful with heroic leadership, the Loon Boss was not, and then we've moved forward, the Praetors retreating, and they're in a funny line to stay more than 3 inches away from those 2 units, the Griffhounds moving into the middle of the board, the Vindictors will stay in melee. In the shooting phase we'll put the Battleplan on Zarbag's Gitz again, basically just trying to make them run away, or at least force command point to be spent. That's 1 shot, which hit, and did not wound. Scratch that, they actually cannot fail battle shock test at all while they're near the middle, which did say anything, but I didn't read that out correctly before. So just to clarify that, the Moon Clan and Trogoth units are immune to battle shock. Anyway, we're on to the charge phase where the Griffhounds will declare a charge, and they should be in with a 7. So they charge around the fountain to get at Zarbag's Gitz, staying away from the Slogoth. But I will pick the Vindictors to fight first. So we have 9 attacks on the Loon Boss, hitting on 3. 62 mortal wounds, 2 mortal wounds, but only 2 other hits. And 3s to wound, just 1.
So 1 5+ save, failed. We're going to have to make one of these 6+ walls to live. Yes, with 1. Yeah. So I'm going to spend a command point with the Loon Boss to use all-out attack on Zarbag's Gitz, who I'm going to pick to fight. So there's some piling in from Zarbag's Gitz. Can't quite get all of them in range. I think that stick it at the back can't quite get in range with this slitter, but that's not the end of the world. So we'll start with the Squig brand from Git. Hits on 2s, gets 2 hits. Wounds on 3s, 6s do a mortal wound in addition. So that's 2 wounds, -1 rend, so that's going to be 4 damage. Got the Barbed Net from Progdonetta on 2s as well, getting 2. And then 4s, but 6s do mortal wound. Got another wound from him, so that's 5 damage so far. There's 2 slitters in range, so these are on 3s, getting 3. And then 4s, it's 2 more, so that's 7 damage. And then Fangfell Gobs from the 2 Squigs on 3s, 4 hits, and wounded on 3s, 6 so there's another 3 wounds, so that's 10 damage.
That actually kills 5 of the 6 Gryph-hounds. So we've just got the Gryph-hound Alpha left, who has 4 attacks that hit on 4s because of the net. Well, they all hit.
It's mad.
And wound on 4s as well. Well, 4 wounds.
Oof.
Well,
good job we've got Mystic Shield. 5+ saves. We made 1, so we're going to lose. We'll lose Red Cap and Dibs.
We've just got the Loon Boss left on the Vindictors, and I'll issue all out defense.
So 5 attacks on 2s, getting 4, and 3s, getting 2. That's 1.
3s again, all out defense. Oh, failed another one.
Another D3 damage. 3 again.
Yeah, I forgot to show it, but the Gryph-hound did also retreat after with darting attacks after making its attack. And in the Battle Shock phase, both of my units do have to take Battle Shock tests. I'll issue Inspiring Presence with the Lord Imperator, who's still got his command point from leadership, and the Vindictors will have to roll. So we lost 2 this phase, and then the Bad Moon gives us another +2 to the roll, so we don't want to roll a 5 or a 6. 5, so the next one runs away, which will be the banner.
And the Gutrippers have to take a Battle Shock test because there's a spooky light over the fountain. Well, they passed.
Well, that will be the end of the battle round. So with that, we're rolling off for battle round 3. I rolled a 5.
I did not.
I'm going to have to go first, I think, to try and claw something back. So on to Stormcast turn 3. It's the Lord Imperator's finest hour, whereas the Killer Boss generated a command point with heroic leadership. And then the Gryph-hound Alpha is going to attempt to rally its own unit. We're missing all 5 of them, so 6s. We get a Gryph-hound. So in the middle, the Praetors and the Lord Imperator have moved to go and try and tackle Slog-off, because we're going to have to deal with that. At some point, the Vindictor Prime retreated from the Loon Boss, because we'll just get killed, might be able to rally later. And the 2 Gryph-hounds ran to the back of the board to go and sit around for a while and hopefully be a nuisance at the end of the game. Lord Imperator might as well try and shoot the Loon Boss, see if we can just finish him off, he's only got 1 wound left. D6 shots, 3 on 2s, because it's finest hour. Yeah, sorry, slight confusion. Yes, +1 to wound with finest hour, so they all missed with 3 2s. And then charging, we'll start with the Praetors. Well, they're definitely in. And I'll roll the Lord Imperator as well, because they can go wherever they need to be. Oh, they only get a 4. Well, where the Praetors have moved, the Lord Imperator actually would have needed to re-roll that. So I will I'll use his free once per turn command ability to do so. He rolls a 5, which I think is still not enough. So it's just the Praetors attacking, and I will spend my remaining command point for all-out attack.
Yeah, I'll spend my heroic leadership command point with the Killer Boss to issue all-out defense to the Slog-off.
And then we've got 10 attacks hitting on 2s. A couple of 1s, but at least the 2s are hitting. And 3s to wound. Only 3.
So 3 4+ saves from the Slog-off. We'll fail them all.
Totally 6 damage at least.
Down to 6. So I'll do the Slog-off hits first. 4 attacks on 3s from the crew. That will hit. Shame it doesn't have poison weapons. And 4s. Blimey, 3 wounds. No rend though.
3s. Wound.
And the Slog-off itself on 2s. 3. And 3s. Getting 3 at -1.
4s. Oh dear. If they're all 3s.
That's 6 damage.
So 7 in total. Losing 2 Praetors does mean that the Killer Boss isn't in range anymore, but Zarbag's Gitz were always in range.
And Drizgit can have a go with his Squig brand. 2 attacks on 2s. Got 1 and 3. He wounded, -1.
4+, made it.
And then the Slog-off gets to try and snatch an enemy model at the end of the combat phase. I will pick the Praetor Prime as my target. Need to roll a 6 though. No.
And unfortunately I had no command points, and the Praetors lost 2, and at +2 to their bravery test means that the wounded one will run away, because that's a 7. Because that's a 9 roll, bravery 8. And the Vindictor Prime has lost the banner, and so his bravery 7, and on a 6 will run away. No. The The Gut Rippers also have to take a battle shock test.
I'm just going to use Inspiring Presence.
Lord Imperator failed heroic leadership. The Loon Boss failed heroic recovery.
Yep, so we'll see if the Slogoth heals. It does. It gets 3 back up to 9. Zarbag gets an extra spell as well. We'll do Arcane Bolt first. Ooh, with a 10. Yep.
Can't unbind it.
And we'll put it on the Praetor Prime. D3. 3.
Yeah, she's dead.
And then we'll try and cast Jealous Hex on the Lord Imperator, needing a 6. Ooh, with an 11. Yes.
So you can't have any positive to hit or wound modifiers or save modifiers.
Yeah. So the Hobgoths, the Lord Imperator bravely ran away when I inched the Slogoth towards him, so...
Yeah, he rolled a 6 for his redeploy and ended up running away quite a long distance, actually.
Yeah,
and leaving the Slogoth stranded in the middle.
My Hobgrots ran and failed to get any footwear, so they're just going to durdle around the vent, staying away from 12 to the middle. Zarbag and his Gitz are going to stay in the middle. The Killer Boss is going to move up with the Slogoth, and the Gut Rippers are going to go after the Griffhounds. Now I've got 1 bow left with the Gitz, so I'll put a shot into the Griffhounds. Missed. In the charge phase, the Slogoth is going to charge. 9, that's going to be enough. And then the Loon Boss will charge as well. Yeah, he's crazy enough to do it. 7's enough. And then the Gut Rippers will try and charge. They get a 6. I'm going to reroll that. I don't think it's even enough. Oh, 4. Not enough. And the Killer Boss might as well have a try. 7. Probably not enough. So the Loon Boss is going to attack the Vindictor Prime. 5 attacks on 2s because of the Sloth. They will hit. And 3s to wound. Getting 3. Shame I didn't do all out attacking.
3s. Or 4s rather. Yeah, she's dead.
Yeah, 2 to 3 damage, so she's gone.
So I've just got the Lord Imperator left and attacking the Slogoth. There's no point issuing all out attack because Jealous Hex would mean it doesn't take any effect.
Yeah, well, I will issue all out defense to the Slogoth.
Then just his normal 4 attacks. Well, hit 3 times anyway. And 3s to wound. Oh, well, nothing. But Dauntless the Griffhound, still got to go. Or hits all 4 times. Wounds on 4s. 3.
No rend on the Griffhound, so 3 plus saves. We've failed 2. Down to 7 on the Slogoth. Then the Slogoth do the crew first on 3s, getting 1. Oh, they're spooked by the Griffhound. They're wounded though.
Saved. Again, no point doing all that defense either because I don't get benefit from that Jealous Hex.
Yep, and then 2s for the Slogoth itself. So that's 4 hits, and 3s, getting 2 at -1.
4s. That'll make it. And the only battle shock test to have to do is the Gut Rippers, who are still within 12 of the middle, having not made their charge.
Yeah, we're just going to use Inspiring Presence.
So that's the end of battle round 3, but I'm just going to concede at this point because I have 3 models left, and I have no way I'm going to clear all of these many models off the middle and even hold it, even if I do kill the Slogoth. So yeah, definitely a destruction victory in this game. We'll recap that for you now. Well, that was the game for issue 28 of Warhammer Age of Sigmar Stormbringer magazine. How do you think that one went?
Pretty well, to be honest, considering I only lost 3 models and 3 of my units pretty much didn't do anything. The Killer Boss just shouted at people to attack good or defend good, and that was kind of it. Do you think the forces were a little unbalanced in my favour? You probably could have done with another unit. I'm not sure which one, maybe the Knight Arcanum or something. Just so you had a wizard as well. But yeah, it really went pretty well. I was very surprised you picked the Vindictors to go over the Griffhounds.
Yes, that was my major mistake in this game. And truthfully, even though I'd just been reading the War Scroll for Zarbag's Gitz, I just for some reason didn't think they would do all that much. I thought maybe I'd lose a couple of Griffhounds, whereas I thought killing the Loon Boss would prevent the Vindictors from being destroyed. But I should absolutely have done the Griffhounds, used all that attack on them. They probably would have killed all Zarbag's Gitz because they've got a lot of attacks and no save. And then just done all that defense on the Vindictors and they probably would have survived.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the one unit Zarbag's Gitz would probably actually do a lot of damage to in melee.
It didn't help that the Lord Imperator had his finest hour and then failed his charge twice, but that was also partly my fault for putting the Praetors in the way. Again, I just thought with the possibility of a reroll, he would roll well enough to go into the Killer Boss, but he didn't manage that either.
I think his shooting was actually pretty poor for the entire game. I think on average, with Unleash Hell, you should actually kill a single Loon Smasher Fanatic when it charges.
Yes, I mean, it did give us a chance to see what it did, and then unfortunately it rolled quite badly anyway, so...
Yeah, I think that's sort of the thing with a lot of Gloomspite Gitz units, is there's a lot of potential for lots of damage, but most of the time it's probably going to be fairly disappointing. But yeah, a single Fanatic probably isn't too scary. Considering I get a unit of 5 later on, that will be scary.
Yeah, because as we saw, well, like my shooting had been probably average, as you say, then I would have just killed it before it got to do anything. But the actual damage potential is really rather terrifying. The rend, obviously, is particularly scary to Stormcast.
Yeah, and the D3 damage.
So yeah, overall, I definitely don't think I played very well. But also, I think you, by sending your units that were immune to battle shock into the middle, was well played. You didn't really care if Zarbag's Gitz got wiped out at the end of the day, because they could just stand there and be annoying, and then towards the end you could charge in a couple of huge units that, well, sure, they'd have to take a battle shock test by standing in the middle.
Yeah, but I have the killer boss as well, so I'll still only lose a maximum of 1.
Yeah, and with now that we have Inspiring Presence, you can mitigate that anyway if you have a command point, so...
Yeah, it's probably going to be probably see it much more often for me than the Stormcast, but it is useful to keep the Stormcast unit around, because they're in the very low chance they actually do. Actually, especially for things like the Griffhounds, because they're fairly low bravery.
The thing with Inspiring Presence, of course, is that you can only issue it once per phase, and so in larger games, if you have lots of battle shock tests to take, you have to pick which one you want to try and do, and you do have to pick that before you roll any of them as well, so you've got to anticipate which one might be the most crucial. And then, Zarbag's Gitz, yeah, as we said, they do have a damage output. It's not inconsiderable.
I mean, they're probably slightly better in melee than the Cunning Crew are. Yeah. And they technically have bows, so they can have a little bit of fire support. I think they are just there to soak up wounds for Zarbag. Probably just the fact that there's 7 of them and they have 2 wounds each. It makes them actually fairly beefy for a Gloomspike Gitz unit.
And you could take quite a few wounds on the unit before the damage output starts getting reduced considerably as well.
The 3 bowmen are basically expendable. And if you can keep the Netter around to the end, that March one to hit is actually real handy as well. And there's probably a lot of sneakiness you can do with the Fanatic. I mean, you can do things... I think technically you can deploy him behind them. So if they get charged, the charging unit brings the Fanatic in. That might be a good way to actually keep him safe and get more out of him.
Yeah, and especially if the enemy unit gets right up within 3 inches, you can only deploy them further. You can only deploy the Fanatic further back, but with a 3-inch weapon range.
And the Fanatics strike first as well.
Yeah, so it's an added threat to charging. Of course, if the unit's doesn't get so close, you can just put him in front. It's not so bad when there's just the one Fanatic, but you don't really want to charge it if you can avoid it because of strike first. So just putting it in the way is going to be a bit of a pain.
Yeah, and it's as you'd expect. Once the Fanatic is loose, they're not going to last very long. They're just going to get shot or spelled off the board.
Yeah, and the other option, of course, is you can run the unit potentially 6 inches if you use at the double, and then deploy it 3 inches and then charge with it in your charge phase. So it is you've got to watch out for that. But obviously, if you do it in your opponent's charge phase, you do run the risk of being held off the board.
And Zarbag himself, his 2 spells are both fairly useful. Not sure how much impact Jealous Hex would have in a larger game, considering he targets heroes, but there are some fairly powerful Stormcast heroes that'd be useful for. And Face of the Bad Moon, it's useful for getting him out of danger, I think, so you can move away. I'm not sure how often you'll actually get to do lots of wounds with it, unless you've surrounded the enemy unit first. I'm not sure how many cases that would happen.
I suppose you could put him behind another unit, so that when an enemy unit charges, then they'll be within 3 inches, and then in your turn you can force the unit to fall back. That wouldn't so much keep him safe from danger as allow a unit that's been charged to then move, because you force the enemy to retreat from it.
Or allow a unit to shoot at different targets.
Yeah, it certainly has its uses, I think. And of course he does get Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield, so...
and being able to cast an extra spell sometimes is handy. And they are really cool models. Obviously this is really good value for money because Zarbag's Gitz, I believe, are out of print, so if you want this they're an Underworld's warband. And they're pretty characterful models again, except maybe Dibs, he's probably the most... the most generic one, but that's why he dies first, so... The
Gloomspike Gitz, if you haven't figured this out by now, are sort of a bit of a comedy faction anyway. They're sort of vicious creatures, but there's a lot of amusement. Well, there's a lot of humour in their thing, and this warband is sort of a microcosm of all the things. You've got the grots with the silly weapons and the ridiculous squigs and fairly ineffectual bowmen.
Yeah, and there's fairly glass cannon-y sort of melee unit as well.
The one with the net that looks like it probably wouldn't actually do anything that much to a Stormcast, but actually is quite good.
Yeah. And the Fanatic, who will hopefully won't be like the Kill Bow and he'll actually do something in future games. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for damage from even a single Fanatic, so...
Yeah.
And if you've ever played Total War Warhammer 2, you know how dangerous Fanatics can be. Although I will say they're a bit of a pain to paint because there's quite a lot of them for an Underworld's warband, so there's a lot of fiddly little details.
But anyway, I think that'll be it for this video and this episode, so if you enjoyed it, then do leave a like and subscribe. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. We've been the Tabletop Donkeys, and we'll see you in the next one.